One.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Area Scouts ProCAST. I am your host, Hector Sandoval, Director of Media here with Area Scouts. And tonight we got a very special guest. We got Miss Amber Hill. She is the Director of Goalies for Women's Lacrosse here at Area Scouts. Amber, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing wonderful. How are you doing, Hector?
I'm doing well, doing well. Can't complain. I'm a little less rushed. I'm sorry. I feel like we rushed you here. I don't want you to be in a flurry or anything.
It's my that's like my whole life. It's totally fine.
The busy life of a professional athlete.
That's right. That's how we roll.
So let's just get started here with a little bit of background and history. Just for the viewers out there, can you tell us a little bit of background on who exactly is Amber Hill?
Well, raised on the Tuscarora Reservation near Lewiston, Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York, just to put it in, conceptualize for people. Raised there pretty much all my life, spent summers with other family members in Six Nations, Ontario, which is where my Haudenosunee status comes from as an enrolled CUGA member. Grew up playing lacrosse, but not on any type of structured team. I didn't receive structure until modified, so 7th, 8th grade. Have never received any formal coaching. Apparently that's really important.
Yeah.
Is what I'm learning since I took this position. And I, like literally just like ran and shot for the moon and the stars with playing lacrosse and really honing in on not just the game itself, but obviously where I come from, where our people, our Haudenosunee people, have created the game and what that means to me, and being really passionate about that and spreading the good word.
Awesome. That's great. I don't think I've come across an athlete that's played at such a high level without having formal coaching at a young age. That was actually going to be one of my questions.
That's what I've been told.
yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Was coaching ever a deciding factor? But obviously, it couldn't have been that big a part, right? It's just for you, it kind of makes it a little more interesting because that definitely means it's the love of the game that brought you into it. And playing. Did you play with? You said that you grew up on the reservation? Is that what you said?
So I'm half Irish. So tomorrow is my day.
Okay.
Half my day.
Oh, nice.
That's why I tell people half Irish. So that's why I look like this. Because people always like, hey, you have like, I'm sure you can't see on the podcast, but my eyes are like really stunningly like bright green.
Oh, wow.
And my hair is naturally red. Don't tell anybody, for everyone out there. But it's really hard to say that you're an Indigenous person, that you're Native, when you have green eyes and red hair. You kind of see it with my natural eyebrows, what I have of my eyebrows. But yeah, no formal coaching. I grew up on territory and had a lot of boy cousins. I had my dad was the youngest of 19. So lots and lots of boy cousins. I had like 2 or 3 girl cousins that were nowhere near close to me in age. And so, I wanted to be cool and play lacrosse like my boy cousins. So, I just play with them and have a great time and didn't receive any structured anything until I made the modified team in middle school. So
that's awesome.
Even when I got to Syracuse and played there, I had a graduate law student, God bless her, for putting up with me, Ellen Rust. She would shoot on me and like be like, hey, I think your angle's off, but nothing like, hey, like this explosive step with your lead foot, this is your like, not
Right.
never. It was mostly just me, like Kaylee Waters, who is such a good friend of mine now because I played with her in the pro league, but goalies like her and Devin Wills, like watching them and being like, oh, so like that's how I would step, or that's how I move my top hand, and I don't certain movements, right? So just being really driven and observant and wanting to be the best and being the best as a person of color, you kind of get pushed into that category whether or not you like it. And so it's almost like you're just made a role model, even if that's not the title that you want. Thankfully, you know, I fell into that and I've run with it. And even from the get-go, like I was like, I have to be the best native goalie out there. So I have to learn and look and watch the best and emulate that. So that's where my coaching came in.
That's still awesome. That's a really good learning process. And it's funny that you say you have green eyes. One of my best friends growing up down, we're from Texas. We're from Texas. He's actually Choctaw, but he's like super light skin, freckles, green eyes, like, and then he's part Mexican, so he speaks perfect Spanish. Like, it's crazy. He's like
somewhere in that DNA code. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's cool though. It's awesome that that's kind of the upbringing, because like I said, it's something that I hadn't heard before. What I did hear earlier on in the week though, is and I spoke with Ethan Walker. I'm not sure if you've made acquaintance with him, but I spoke with him. He was my first interview here a few weeks ago. And in doing some research about lacrosse, I kind of heard a tidbit of history that I want to verify here. Is it true that it's a native sport? Like it was a native born sport?
So there are 574 federally recognized tribes. Those are just the tribes that are recognized. The Haudenosunee Confederacy is comprised of 6 tribes. One of them obviously being the Cayuga, of which I am an enrolled member. The Haudenosunee Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee created the game of lacrosse. It came from my people. So it's not just like when people think, actually my partner's non-native, he's from Alabama, had like no idea like we were still here. So when I'm sharing this like piece of history with him, you know, when you're like not when you're not native or like native adjacent, I guess you could say, you're like, oh, so the Choctaw, right, are the same as the Delaware, are the same as, you know, the Algonquin, are the same as like we're all different. And we all have our different ceremonies and our different cultures and the way that we carry ourselves. And I think that is a distinction that gets lost through people. They're like, oh, you know, like natives created the game, but it's really like, if you want to know the true history and the origins of the game, it's the Haudenosaunee that created the game.
Wow. That's why you didn't have to have coaching. It's in your blood. You were literally born with it.
It's in half my blood anyway.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's half is enough to get you where you've been now. And
that's if I was full. Oh my goodness.
I know. Incredible. We'd have 6 gold medals that we're talking about. So for a youth athlete that wasn't born into it, or that wasn't raised with it, like with siblings as you were, or with cousins as you were, what would you say are some differences between like when you first started? Okay, so let's say differences from playing out in the field with your family to going to the organized team, and then to moving on to the level that you're playing at now. Is it something that, I mean, for you it came easily, but you had training. It just wasn't, you weren't going to a coach, you weren't going to a gym or anything like that. Yeah. But the dedication level, how different does that change from one level to the next? So
I do now have experience with this because my partner, like I said, is non-native, and he has 2 children that are obviously non-native. I did not give birth to them. And we've introduced them into lacrosse, and it's interesting watching and comparing my daughter, who is 3/4, her dad is full, watching and comparing their relationship with the game versus my daughter's, so, and mine as well. So I wouldn't say with me it was expected, but it was like, I never remember seeing my cousins without a stick. Like it would be weird to see them without one. And you know, same thing with my daughter, like she sometimes sleeps with her stick. Like that's the type of relationship that like she, like that's a piece of her. Absolutely. And I have dogs. There's no room in my bed for a stick, but if there was, I would definitely sleep with my babies. Those are, you know, my special wands that I use. But watching, you know, my stepchildren, and their relationship with the game, it's it's not as spiritually connected. Like I do
Right.
know that. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Like I have played basketball, I've played soccer. I used to be a stellar softball catcher, believe it or not, but I picked
Wow.
I picked lacrosse because obviously I had to pick one because they were in the same season. I actually went to the Native American Indigenous Games, which is like our like Olympics, for being a softball catcher way back then.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to Winnipeg.
Nice.
I don't even remember the year, but I remember being probably too young to be by myself.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I think having my comparison with other sports, like I see that that's how they are with lacrosse. Like it's just another sport. Whereas like
Mhm.
if I go, a couple days without not even like a competition, but like touching my stick, like I feel it here that I'm like off. Like
Right.
I need the medicine of touching my stick and doing a little bit of wall ball, or maybe retaping it for the thousandth time. Like I need to be with that. And
Right.
it's different. And I don't know how far you went into it with Ethan, but with our men, our men are given a stick at birth. And some would say, depending on what your beliefs are, like how traditional you are with our traditions, some say that the gift of lacrosse was given to the men, and some would say that it was given to the people. And so that was a struggle in the beginning, because um, that's how I found out that women weren't allowed to play lacrosse. So Haudenosunee women
Wow.
were not allowed to play. And I learned that from Jordan's father, because he's from Onondaga, which is where our central fire is.
Mhm.
And a lot of traditional people live. And I grew up, like I said, in Tuscarora, where the Christians kept burning down our longhouse. So we didn't have any ceremonies or anything there. We actually just, I say we as if I was a part of it. I was not, but like big ups to the building crew. They finished our longhouse during COVID. And we've had a few tobacco burnings in there. I don't think they've had a ceremony in there yet, but I mean, we're talking recently, obviously,
Right. Right.
that we've been able to have our own ceremonies and on our own territory. So yeah, it's such a long story, and I could go on for hours, as I usually do on other podcasts, but yeah, it was like a big thing to learn that Haudenosaunee women weren't allowed to participate in the game.
Mhm.
And when I first went to Syracuse, which is how I met Jordan's dad in Onondaga, because it's like 10 minutes away,
Mhm.
I was, and Facebook was new, so I was meeting people in Onondaga that were like telling me that I was making the creator cry, and
Wow.
it was very traumatic and heartbreaking, because at that point, I was training for our World Cup in 2007. That was obviously a big deal, and the game has already taken me to Syracuse at that point. And I was, playing in the dome, which is incredible.
Right.
I couldn't understand, because I didn't grow up traditionally. I didn't grow up with our ceremonies and our language, which I now am instilling in my daughter, and going to ceremonies and learning our language. So it 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 was a very unconventional way of learning to play the game that I can't expect out of, obviously, my stepchildren. They
Right.
have their own path to play, and I'm excited to see not having that like spiritual grasp on the game, like how they
Right.
take it. So
Right. And that's kind of another type of dedication to the game when you don't have the cultural tie, you don't have the expectation, like you said, of you have to go out there and you have to, for lack of a better term, you got to put on for your people. Like you got to go out there and do it. So there's that difference of, okay, well, I want to, no one's expecting me to, but I want to go out there and do that. And it takes a certain amount of dedication to get to these higher levels of anything really, and most importantly here of lacrosse. So speaking of higher levels, I want to go over, we could be here for 2 days listing all your accolades that you've had. But what I want to talk about is you've racked up 3, is that true? Gold medals? Is that correct?
Yeah, four.
4. You've already lost count. That's a good problem to have.
Well, so my people, like we don't like we don't brag. So
I got you.
I get so red in the face. Like you can see it now. Like I get so red in the face when people. So I'm also a ref. So for instance, the other night I also ref basketball, and my friend is also a ref, and I walk in there and she's like, "Here comes Amber Hill, World Cup goalie, professional." And I don't like that.
Right.
It makes me so uneasy, and I feel so extremely pretentious. Yeah, I'm not really good with listing my accomplishments or being like, "Listen, do you know who I am?"
Right.
It's just humility is one of the main two things that I definitely emulate for my people. I don't like doing that.
No, but that's good too. I mean, it's part of being an athlete, really. When I was growing up, my main thing was cross country here, and we had a really solid team because of our coach. But our coach, every single race, when we'd get off, I mean, we'd get back on the bus, and our region is a small region, so the competition wasn't as competitive as you're in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. But every time we got back, if we won a race and we got back on the bus, first words that came out of my coach's mouth were, "Fellas, be humble. Be humble, be humble. Don't ever go out there." And we're 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade kids. So, at that age, you kind of want to walk with your chest out a little bit because you're winning. But he taught us, I mean, from the beginning, for every single race, every practice, every time, everything he said was be humble, be humble. And that's part of the game that a lot of athletes, when you have the talent that it takes to compete, you also have to have the right attitude, because it's not, I mean, you can throw so many opportunities away if you don't have the right head on your shoulders.
Well, and I think too, like from the goalie perspective, if you are, not a good team player, if you're a braggart, if you're, this word gets thrown around so much these days, but if you're toxic, I can't expect my defenders and my teammates to want to protect me if like I'm not a great person.
Right.
So like, to just put it very cleanly and PC,
right.
But again, like I said, like in our teachings, like that's why I don't do it because like, hey, I need my defenders to protect me. Like I want to have a good mind and play with a good heart when I'm in the game. And that's a big part of it. So, like I don't have like a file on my computer that's like, here's accomplishment 1 through 20.
Right.
I just know off the top of my head the big ones that I need to say when I get asked by people on a podcast. Like I just rattle them off real quick. Like I'm sure I'm missing God knows how many, but it's whatever. The way that I look at it on top of that is I'm not done. So that's what I've done, but I'm still not done. So like stay tuned. Like here we go.
Right. And so how long have you been playing in total, I guess, but also professionally? How long have you been playing? Like after you left Syracuse, how long have you stayed in the game?
Well, I'm still in the game.
Right. That's what I mean. How long have you stayed in the game?
So present. I'm gonna date myself, which talking to my friends are like, that's something that you should be proud of, that like you have a 14-year-old daughter and you're hanging out with kids that have just graduated from like the top 20 schools and you're competing with them. Right, so absolutely. As much as I'm like, ooh, I don't, because like if you see, like I have good skin, like all this grease is keeping me wrinkle free. But the body feels like it's aging in dog years. But like I graduated Syracuse in 2009. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I just retired, unfortunately, internationally,
Oh,
but I'm still competing professionally. Have been competing professionally since 2017.
okay.
And I am also, so that's field, so field lacrosse, but box lacrosse.
Mhm.
So in field lacrosse, I'm a goalie, which is obviously national director of goalkeeping is
Mhm.
field. And once, if I can talk Lance or Andrew into this, once we can maybe sprout out to box lacrosse
Mhm.
for women, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring over there. I play defense and transition for the Six Nations Snipers for the Women's Arena Lacrosse League. And I play for the Akwesasne Outlaws for what was the Ontario Women's Box Lacrosse League, and they recently rebranded to join forces with Major Series Lacrosse. So now they're the Women's Major Series Lacrosse, so WMSL.
Okay.
So two teams. The Six Nations Snipers Arena Lacrosse League is going on right now. I'm actually, I want to say 9-1, 8-1. We're competing in the championship not this weekend, but the following weekend. So everybody out there, cross your fingers for me.
Absolutely.
You can check out my Instagram. I just actually posted a reel. One of the fans caught me plowing over a girl
Oh,
and sent it to me. So I, reeled it up and put some music with it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, like I am still, like I said, competing in field competitively,
Mhm.
professionally. And if we can get women's box lacrosse, not just to the professional level. I want to say the MSL is senior A lacrosse, so it's like a step below professional. I guess you can
Mhm.
call it semi-pro.
Mhm.
But if we can get that to the international level as well, like women's field is, I'm actually on the World Lacrosse Working Group for that.
Wow.
Just a little slight push
Yeah,
there.
to get them in the direction of doing
Just a
that.
little
Yeah.
plug. I just want to plug
Yeah.
that in there. But I mean, for equity and equality, like why do the men get their U19 and senior field and box, and women only get field U19
Mhm.
and senior? There are women that have been only playing box lacrosse, not field, for like decades.
Mhm.
I compete with these warriors like every weekend. Like, why can't we also have our own stab at international competition? So just throwing that out there as well.
Of
So
course.
yeah, still I don't get out of bed as fast as I used to. I'm using a little bit more Tiger Balm and
Yeah.
CBD I'm accustomed to, but I'm still training, I'm still pulling it out there. And
Right.
yeah, no, I'm gonna do it until probably someone tells me I shouldn't.
Till
So
the wheels fall off.
so
Yeah.
yeah, until the doctor's like, hey, like let's be real, like stop.
Right. It seems like that's the mentality of any great athlete is I'm gonna go until the wheels fall off. And we just saw Tom
Oh my
Brady
God, Tom
retire
Brady.
for like 2 months and then came back. One of
I
my
actually got sent that tweet, and one of my friends sent it to me in my box group and is like, oh, this is Burr's line when she's done playing.
Yeah, I grew up diehard San Antonio Spurs fan, and so Tim Duncan's one of my favorite players of all time. And I
Familiar.
remember when they won, or when they were gonna win, it was looking like they were gonna win in 2015. He was asked, "Are you planning on going out on top like David Robinson did? Are you planning on, if you win, is this gonna be it for you? You're getting up there in age." And he said, "Why would I want to go out on top?" He's like, "I want the game to be taken away from me. I want to not be able to jump anymore. I don't want to leave the court knowing that I could have still kept going." And that was one of my favorite things that I've ever heard anybody say. And which leads me to the question of, I say that to ask what is it that motivates somebody who's played at such a high level as you have, to keep going? Like, what drives you? Is it hard to find the drive anymore, or
No.
what makes it so easy?
Well, I mean, physically, it's not easy. Like
Right.
I'm not cramming down like a 30 pack and a whole pizza to myself anymore. I'm like, oh, so it's a salad today and
Yeah.
3 more times today. I think that, you know, being older and being involved in such a high level of competition, as well as like maturing, right? Like I'm like, it's not just me out there. I have to not just mentally take care of myself, but physically, like as I have matured, like I have really grown into, I feel like a piece of my game that I probably should have had like realistically 10 years ago. But because of my upbringing and um the trauma that I say that laughing, my therapist says I shouldn't. The trauma that I endured growing up and having to deal with everything that I did, you know, I feel like I'm almost like 10 years behind the 8 ball with everything. So it's like as I'm maturing and I'm realizing like, hey, you have to take care of your body, you have to train this way, you have to talk to your teammates this way, you have to talk to yourself this way. It's almost like finding that new love and passion for the game. There is no like, oh, crap, I gotta go for a run today, oh god, I have to play tomorrow. Like I am so pumped to like be out there with whomever, and still like pull that helmet over my face and be like it's game time, baby. Like let's go. And I don't know, I wish there was like some kind of liquid or powder or something like I could give to people to just encapsulate like that passion, that love that I have for the game, because I think it would just make it that much better, because I see people that, you know, don't play with a good mind, and that kind of ruins it for everybody else. But yeah, no, I pray that my mindset and positivity and just like ready to go-ness doesn't ever change until, again, you know, like I need a hip replacement or something,
right? Until it's just healthier for you to not do it anymore.
Yeah, like maybe, hey, you just stand on the bench and shout orders instead of being out there. And yeah, so
right. And so on that note, we talked about the adversity of having to go through the stigma that men should be the ones playing lacrosse, and having to go through all of that, and that seems like a battle that a lot of people don't think about, especially when it comes to women's sports. I mean, mainly when it comes to women's sports. And so you had to go through that. Were there any other big moments that you remember of adversity, or did you ever have any injuries pertaining to the sport that kind of held you out for a little bit, or even made you rethink, you know, maybe I need to do this a little differently, or take a break, or anything like that?
Yeah, so being 14 weeks pregnant, competing in my first World Cup was definitely one of those moments. I was 19 and more stubborn than probably anybody in the face of this whole game. But I was a goalie, and I was the only goalie, and it was our first international appearance. So I wasn't like, they're not going to flip the net over and put a garbage can in. Like,
yeah,
I got a chest protector on. Like, my hands are fast enough. Like, we'll figure it out. I actually ended up playing against Japan. I fell on my stomach, and
oh wow,
I tore my placenta. This story could go on for hours, but Jordan's fine, everyone. Again, you check on my Instagram, she's 6'2", she's a left-handed goalie, brilliant, can solve like a 3x3 Rubik's cube in less than 2 minutes. I am so in love with my child. Like she's awesome. So everything went the way that it was supposed to, thank goodness. Not on that day, but it was very traumatic, but she ended up being fine and being born early, but huge. And I tore my knee, I tore my meniscus and my PCL playing against Ireland in 2009 against Ireland in Prague,
wow,
in the 2009 World Cup. So that for me, that was very, very mentally exhausting for me, especially being that far overseas. It wasn't like I was 2 minutes over the border. That showed me that, I mean, my daughter was born in January of 2008. The cup was in, I believe, July of 2009. I trained the way that I thought I should train, but looking back, obviously hindsight 2020, I didn't train nearly enough and not even remotely hard enough as I should have. And I went down for a save and it just tore. I heard the pop, and again, like at that point, I think the Czech Republic had been not a third world country for like maybe 2-3 decades. So I resisted going to the hospital, and we still had a schedule to play. So I'm like, you're going to take me up. I'm not going. They'll like chop the wrong leg off over here. Like I'm not going to the hospital here. Duct tape, I don't care. They did the ACL pull test. But yeah, ended up being my PCL and my meniscus. I had it repaired when I came back, but that was a huge eye opener for me, because I feel like in 2007, when I was pregnant with Jordan, having that fall and then having her, it didn't give me the ability or the time really, and I also didn't have the maturity to be able to like pause and look back and be like, hey, like XYZ went wrong. Maybe don't be pregnant for this one, but like, how do we fix, and how do we get better? Like I didn't have the opportunity to stop. And that's only a 2-year gap. And in reality, when you're getting an international team ready, that's not like 2 years, like date to date, right? Like it's like 6 months, like, hey, we're training again, we're having tryouts, like, so I didn't have the time to refocus. And then, like I said, tore my knee in 2009. So that was a big eye opener, to train harder. And then in 2017, right before I went to England, we were having a friendly. This is a horrible story. We were having a friendly against Israel in Long Island, and I did like a sliding save across the turf. It was summer. It was 98 bazillion degrees out. And I ended up ripping my leg up pretty good. We called a timeout. I had them wrap it, because if anything that I know, a sunburn on top of a turf burn is no bueno. So had them wrap it. Long story short, go back to the hotel. I'm able to like pull hair, God knows what, out of it, clean it up. So painful. Driving back from Long Island, it immediately started like pussing, like stuff falling out. And you're an athlete, you've had turf burn, like it's not a big deal. So I stop at Walmart, I'll get my hydrogen peroxide, my rubbing, all the things. So that was a Sunday. So by Tuesday morning, it was so infected, and my leg was like my calf was the same size as my thigh. I go see my primary. They come in, they put like a dog pee pad under my leg, because it's like stuff is falling out of my leg.
Coming out,
It's just falling out of my leg. And the doctors are like this is pre-COVID, right? So they're like wearing masks, and I'm like, so like, hey, what's going on, guys? And they're like, we're gonna send you to the infectious disease unit up in the city, because we don't know what's going on with your leg. We've never seen this before. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, you can't drive, because it was my right leg. So I call my mom. She's a quarter mile down the road. She meets me. She's freaking out, like, oh my God, how you're smoking her cigarette? How could this happen? We get up there, and she's like, I don't want you to walk. Like, let's put you in a wheelchair. I'm like, oh my God, like you gotta make me look like, mom's right. I get in the wheelchair. And actually by that time, it like even hurt to put weight on my foot. So she wheels me in, and my mom is also physically disabled. So like she's got her cane, and she's like trying to wheel. It was such a shock. So we get in there, the doctor, the infectious disease doctor, meets us on the first floor, and he looks at my leg, and he was like, just shakes his head. And I immediately vomited into my lap. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And he's like, the infection is spreading. We have to get you upstairs immediately. I'm like,
oh my goodness.
What? Oh yeah. So we go upstairs. He, little Indian guy, very, very mean, very straightforward. Probably not mean, but in that moment, I like needed to not hear what he was saying.
Right.
But he was like, you waited too long. I have to take your leg. And I was like, I am competing in a world
Yeah.
cup in 3 months. Like, no, my mom starts crying and she's like, she's an athlete, you can't do this to her. And I'm like, I don't like, I've watched enough Grey's Anatomy, like put
Yeah.
the little glasses on and cut it open and drain the
Yeah.
blood. And he was like, I can't save this. You waited way too long. And I was like, it is Tuesday morning. Like, this happened Sunday morning. He's like, 48 hours. He's like, the infection's in there. I don't know what to do with you. And I'm like, listen, like, now I'm like breaking down. I'm like,
Yeah.
I cannot not have a leg. Like, please, like, whatever you can do. So, he's all not in a good mood.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we'll take you down. They took me to the OR. He like scrubbed it. He dug it open. It was horrible. And he put me on bed rest. I have my leg to this day, just for anybody wondering.
Yeah.
The story. But it ended up being a cellulitis infection that like traveled up my leg, and it was bad. I also failed to mention that during this time period, I'm also running for city council for Niagara Falls. So I'm in the petitioning phase. So I can't like be on bed rest. Like, I have to get my signatures so I can get on the ballot. So they put me on bed rest for 3 weeks. Doesn't matter, because I was up in 3 days, crying, in so much pain, like stuff still falling out of my leg. And I went to the emergency room like every month for 4 months until I went to World Cup, because the infection kept coming back because my stubborn ass wouldn't sit still.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to train for that World Cup either as much as I wanted to, because I was full of infection. So yeah. So
wow.
a lot of just stupid, like, hey, maybe you just sit this one out and recover and keep your leg. To this day, I actually just went for a bone scan, because right after Athletes Unlimited when I came home in September, I got another infection in my leg. So we're dealing with that. It's
in the same leg.
It's in my soft tissue. So we're trying to figure out a plan. So this is from 2017. So we're trying to figure out a plan on like how not to take my leg and get the infection out, so I don't have the infection anymore, like once a quarter, because they know me in the emergency room now. For my house.
Yeah.
Give me the antibiotics. You guys know the drill.
It's a part of the game that obviously as athletes we want to compete, and especially when you're at the level that you were at, where you know it's the World Cup, like it's the World Cup, I'm gonna compete. And it's sometimes it takes I don't know, maybe sometimes it doesn't even take a doctor to tell you, because sometimes it's just you're gonna do it. And for the youths out there that are listening, like sometimes you probably shouldn't. Sometimes you take that break, take
a life-threatening infection. Maybe you just like, there's next time.
Yes. Yeah. And Amber, you were lucky. You were enormously lucky enough for it to not have gotten any worse. But guys, it can get a lot worse if we don't actually take the time to rehab and take care of our bodies. Yes. I'm very glad, as I'm sure all your teammates have been glad, and everybody listening now are glad that you still have your leg. That's great.
Yes. And it is normal size. You can't tell unless
it came back down to a regular calf.
Yeah, I had pictures on my Instagram. I had pictures on Snap. I was like, you guys got to see this thing. Oh my God.
That's crazy. Yeah. But like I said, I'm glad you were able to keep it.
Thank you.
But so when you mentioned the caution about seeking medical help overseas, so given the experience that you've had, really from not having a coach to then having coaches to then you're even a ref now, to having professional teammates, and then also your training experience, health training experience that you've been helped with, and I'm sure that you've had to learn on your own. What are some of the benefits, the pros and cons of how it is here and how it is today? Like that you're obviously more comfortable doing that here than somewhere overseas, seeking medical help and stuff. So what are some of the benefits of nowadays, the coaching and the training experiences now for youth athletes?
I think that like people will listen to you more as a youth, like when I was growing up, like no one got their ankles taped. Like you got you got like ankle braces, and then you got like a size up cleat to fit your ankle. Like there was no what's the word I'm looking for? Like individualized, like, oh, I know Tina needs her ankles taped. I know so-and-so needs KT tape on their shoulder. Like athletes nowadays are so much more better taken care of. And obviously, as you continue to climb the ladder and the levels of your play, we were so babied at Athletes Unlimited. I lived in that training room. They had the hyper ice volt guns.
Oh yeah.
They had like a whole like buffet of like, grab one, here's like the attachment, like go to town. It's always on the charger. There was the Normatec like sleeve, like leg sleeves that like compress your legs, and like I don't think I would have made it through the entire season without, especially with all the bruises and hits that I take. I swear by those Normatec leg sleeves. Like those are, I know they're like $2,000, but I have one and I wouldn't give it to anyone in an Armageddon. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I swear by them. And again, like they didn't have those things unless, you know, I just didn't know about them growing up. But like you can, I just saw it in Target, the hyperized volt gun, like for $300. Obviously 300 isn't anything to blink at, but you have like, you don't need like a doctor's prescription to have access to that. And KT tape, love it, does wonders. And just having access to trainer, like when I went to high school, I don't remember there being I'm sure there was, but I don't remember there being a physical trainer on the field. Like, hey, is your back hurt? Do you want a bag of ice? Ever. I was first introduced to that in college, and I was like, oh, my back does hurt.
Yeah, why, yes, it does. I would like ice.
I would. And how do I do this? Oh, you're gonna like saran wrap it on my body. Wow. And now it's just like, you know, you walk up and I don't ever take that for granted, because again, like growing up not having running water, I'm like, thank you so much for this bag of ice that you're about to tape on me. I really appreciate you. Like, thank you. But yeah, it's just like such a given, I feel like nowadays. And again, like as a ref, you know, I get to see the whole gambit of, you know, modified to JV to varsity athletes that have these resources, not on a professional level, but they have these resources available to them at their level. And kids, like, if I can stress anything, please use it. Like, get that bag of ice, like have your trainer stretch you out. Like, it is so important to take care of your body and take care of your mind and learning that at an early age, instead of, you know, being, you know, 34 and being like, I should be nicer to myself.
Yeah.
Like that would be a nice thing to do. Yeah.
And it's something that it can be as simple. I mean, it can be as complicated as going to a doctor whenever you feel like you're injured or anything, or as simple as just making sure that you're making the right movements and making sure that even in the simplest forms of, if you're swinging a bat, if you're swinging a baseball bat, or you're guarding gigantic athletes.
Yes.
You know, you have to be able to do it the right way. And I feel like the help that we're able to provide as evaluators and everything with area scouts, and the reach that we can, the distance at which we can reach a young athlete is phenomenal. And it's the platform is there, the help is there, as you said, even if it's on the app or if it's at your trainer's room at high school, you know, take it. Just do whatever you need to do to be able to take care of your own body and elongate this journey that we all like to trek.
Yes. Well, I think that's the most important thing, right? Is like, if I had someone at the high school, middle school, whatever level say, hey, like, we don't want to stand that way because it causes back injuries, or your hamstrings are going to be so tight with you standing that way. Like, let's do it this way. Right. You know, maybe I wouldn't be aging in dog years right now. So,
Right.
so yeah, no, I think, the platform is awesome. Obviously, that's why I took the position. I think it's so important to teach young athletes the right way to go so they don't form the wrong habits and injure themselves early, especially when you're still growing and you have growth plates and oh, it's so important to form the right moves correctly when you can, basically the first time.
Right.
So
yeah, it gets so much more difficult after you've already formed a bad habit to fix it. It's so much easier to just learn it the right way, or like learn it when you're at a young age. That way you don't have to worry about, now you have this muscle memory, even though it's the wrong way, you have to try and break that to go back and do it the right way.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, so my last question for you tonight is, if you could have one piece of advice to give to all the youth athletes that are watching, that are thinking about joining their club teams, their local teams, or about starting a life in sports, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give them?
Don't be afraid to fail ever, because there's a saying in my house, like, there's not winning or losing, you win or you learn, period. And I know that might sound cliche, but it has brought not just myself, but my daughter out of some like really difficult situations. So don't be afraid to like be the only one in the room that has to ask the question, or watch somebody else do something, like, and if you do it and you fail, like, just do it again. Like, I actually talked to someone today about trying out for a specialized team, and they were worried if they didn't make it. And I said, are you gonna put it on your resume that you didn't make that team? Like, no one brags about their, like, I'll help you hide it in the closet. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't make it. Like, if you do, great. If you don't, who cares? Try again. Right? Like, just keep pounding the pavement and stay at it, because there was a time when I didn't have 4 World Cups under my belt, and I didn't have gold medals under my belt, and I didn't know how to hold my stick. Like, we all start from somewhere, and I still do things wrong to this day, believe it or not. And professionals, any other professional in any other sport, will tell you the same thing. Like, we can always hone and get better at our craft. So just keep pounding the pavement.
No one wakes up in the morning. No one's born a professional athlete.
Right.
They're created out of hard work. And I like that the question also, don't be afraid to ask a question. I mean, 9 times out of 10, somebody else in that room had the same question, but they didn't want to ask. So be that person. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I want to say thank you, Amber. First and foremost, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for your part in Area Scouts. Thank you for blazing the trail that you blazed. Thank you for not listening whenever they told you that women weren't supposed to be playing lacrosse, and turning into the athlete that you are now, and the role model that you're able to be for young female athletes. I appreciate all that you do, and of course, thank you for coming on with us tonight. And I want to see. I want you to plug your Instagram page right now, because I want to go and check out those the pictures.
Listen, I post some things, let me tell you. So the Instagram is BER, like Amber. So Burr _Gonz, GONZ, like Gonzo. Because I was so ugly when I was little. This is a true story. It's a true story. I was so ugly when I was little that was my nickname, was Gonzo. I grew a beautiful swan, as everyone can see. But yeah, my dad called me Gonzo. So
BERGONZ.
Burr _Gonz.
Oh, _Gonz. GONZ. Awesome.
Yes.
And on that note, our Instagram also, you can find us on Instagram at Area Scouts, Facebook Area Scouts, YouTube Area Scouts, and the Discord. On our Discord channel, Area Scouts, come on. We're trying to build a community so we can all communicate with all our evaluators, with the staff, with people who have gone through the program and have some words, some reviews to say about it. So go ahead and join us on Discord so we can get the message out. And until next weekend, Amber, again, I want to say thank you. You're welcome. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from you soon. Hopefully we'll be reading about another championship from you soon.
Oh, fingers crossed, man. Let's go.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.